Hi, I'm Lyndon Blades, and today we're going to look at how to set up your mouthpiece and reed and ligature in a way that's going to give you the very best chance of making a great sound on the sax. The thing is that if these three elements, the ligature, mouthpiece and reed, are not set up correctly, it's going to make it really hard to get a great sound on the sax. On the other hand, when they are set up precisely, then that's going to prevent you from making funny sounds really easily or making odd squeaks with the sax, which obviously is something we want to avoid when we're practicing. So let's have a look at how to do this. And it's not particularly difficult, but it does need to be done precisely and exactly correctly. I'm going to help you with that now, so let's have a look. Okay, so let's have a look at how to set up the reed, ligature and mouthpiece correctly. It's really important that these three elements are all working together to give yourself the best chance of making a great sound on the saxophone. And there's a few things that I want to draw your attention to. Firstly, this ligature, can you see that there's an edge here on the mouthpiece and there's an edge here on the mouthpiece as well? And this ligature needs to be roughly midway between those 2 points. If it's moved all the way up to one end or the other, like this, right, you're not going to get a great sound. It's going to be hard to make a great sound when your ligature is in that position. It needs to be midpoint between those two edges. Another thing that has to be pretty much exactly correct is that, can you see that the edge of the reed is like a hair's breadth away from the tip of the mouthpiece, and there's a tiny little bit of black mouthpiece which is visible. If the reed is moved back like in this position, right, that is going to be nearly impossible to play, and it's going to be so difficult to make a good sound. Even if it's like this, it's still going to be really hard to produce a good sound. So if it was in that position, I would have to move it up just so that there's a tiny little bit of black mouthpiece visible to the eye. Another mistake that is really easy to make, and a lot of beginners do, is that they over tighten the screws of the ligature. The role of the ligature is really just to hold the reed onto the mouthpiece, and the way that a saxophone produces a sound is by this reed vibrating. Now, if these screws are so tight, it's clamped down, it can't vibrate properly, and you'll again find it really, really difficult to get a good sound. One more thing to pay attention to is making sure that these screws are more or less centrally located over the top of the reed. So if these screws are cocked over to one side or the other, like this, once again, that's going to make it much harder to get a nice sound. So I'm going to quickly take these three elements apart and show you how I set it up. Okay, so you've got a flat edge on the mouthpiece and you've got a flat edge on the reed, and we want to put these two flat parts together. So in other words, not like this, but with these two flat parts together. Now, can you notice that on this ligature there is a wide end and a narrow end? Can you see that? There's a wide end this side and a slightly narrower end there. It can be a bit tricky to spot, but it definitely is there. So we want to go with the wide end over first, and we want to make sure that the ligature doesn't come in contact with the tip of the reed because it may damage it. So just put that over, and then I'm going to maneuver the reed into place using my fingers until it's more or less where I need it to be. Just a hair's breadth down. The ligature's midway between those 2 points, slightly cocked over to one side, so I'm just going to adjust that. We're talking millimeters here, not big differences, but these small changes are going to make a significant difference to the way that the saxophone sounds. Now I'm going to tighten these screws, but only as soon as I feel a bit of resistance. That's as tight as they need to go. The last thing, so that's now set up correctly. The last thing that I need to do is to put this on the end of the crook. And as you'll see, I've made a line there so that I know how far to push the crook down in order to play in tune. Now, if you push on, it will make the saxophone, the tone of the saxophone, go up slightly. And if you pull off, then the saxophone, the tone of the saxophone will go down slightly. So if you're ever playing really out of tune, it might be worth just pushing on or pulling off with the mouthpiece. I want to make sure that the reed is in line with the bottom of the crook, and then I'm ready to go. And that's perfectly set up. So now we know how to set up the mouthpiece, reed and ligature correctly and put that on the end of the crook. We're ready for the next session, which is how to produce a tone on the sax. I'm looking forward to seeing you then. My name's Lyndon Blades.